Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever it is, wherever you are, welcome to the Good Values Podcast. Now this is episode 20 of season 2, and I'm going to start making a couple of little changes here and there. I'm going to be very brief because that is one of the changes I'm going to make. So one of the changes is that I usually do a long-ish intro talking about how I met the guest, loving them up because I do love all the guests that I've had. There's no one who I've had on the channel who I don't like. I wouldn't put them on the channel. This guest is no exception, but I'm going to tell you one of the updates is that I'm going to be a lot more brief in my introductions and my outros. Another thing I'm going to try and stop doing is pointing at the camera. I usually do a kind of call to action where I point at the camera. I'm going to stop doing that because I think it doesn't look good, and as much as it's kind of trying to hammer the point home, I don't think it really works and it seems a little bit aggressive. I'm not going to do that newsreader thing that they do where they kind of curl their finger around their thumb like that and kind of, do this weird gesture as if they've kind of got a cup of coffee and they're trying to fit it into a coffee machine, or I don't know what that action is, but to me it makes me feel like, there's a coffee machine there and they're like trying to fit it in, and weird. I'm not going to be doing the pointing or that thing. Instead I'm just going to be like flailing my arms around. I don't know what I'm going to do. Another thing that I'm going to change is that I usually try to wear the same clothes that I wore when I did the interview, and that can be really difficult. Sorry, I'm going to try and keep this brief, but I've got to quickly tell you, there was a guest who I dressed in a certain, I think I was wearing a buttoned up t-shirt, a long sleeved one, and a cardigan, because it was early in the year and it was really cold. And then I'm filming the intro at really, hot weather, middle of the year. And I had to wear I didn't have to, but I'd chosen to do that. So I'm not going to do that anymore because I was sweating, trying to do the intro. And I was like, okay, here's the guest. Okay, that was the guest. Weren't they great? We talked about this. Really appreciate them. All right, tune in next time. Thanks, bye. And then I was like, oh my God, take these clothes off. They're so hot. So I'm not doing that anymore. I'm just going to wear my normal clothes. I'm pretty sure no one would notice, except I just brought it up. So anyway, ignore that. And the last thing I'm going to change is the length of each episode. Normally episodes are between 30 and 40 minutes long, sometimes a little bit longer. I think the Peter Draws one was 46 minutes. I'm going to now have them full length because it was a bit of advice I'd had from a friend of mine who said that she'd struggled to watch something that was over an hour or up to an hour long. But I found that splitting episodes into parts means that a lot of people watch the first episode and a lot less watch the second, and less again watch the third. And I'd rather the guest get the most views that is possible. So I'm now going to upload the full interview. There might be a few cuts here and there, but not in this episode. This is not an edited episode. It's uncut. It's a great conversation. I love this guest. You may know her, and if you don't, she's already featured on this channel in season 1. She's one of those people who really did me a favour by being a guest. I really appreciate it. This is my second conversation with Gabriela Handal. Could you introduce yourself for the audience, please?
Yes. Thanks for having me again. My name is Gabriela Handal, and I'm a draftsman. And I say draftsman specifically because I like the word. Well, from the Republic of Panama, and I live and work, have a wife here in the United States, in New York.
Fantastic.
My husband's wife.
Well, yeah, I appreciate you coming on again. You're a fantastic guest last time I spoke to you, and I've been looking forward to having the opportunity to speak to you again. And this time, there's been lots of things that I've been appreciating about it's your Instagram account I mainly view, but obviously you've got these fantastic conversations about art that you do as well.
Yes.
How long have you been doing your conversation about art? Or art, what's the title of it? Sorry, is it Conversation About Art?
It's a conversation about art, yes.
Yeah.
Start. I started those, I think it was October of the year before last. So last year was 2022. So I think October of 2021.
Fantastic. That's brilliant. And is it people from your university or your kind of school that you speak to?
There's some people, students and faculty from the academy, yeah.
Hmm.
But there's also, some of my classmates also from that, but also just strangers.
Yeah.
I've found there's several of them that were suggested by a specific person who I asked, and the other ones, a bunch of them have been people that were, in Instagram, how when you're looking, you have like a suggested person to follow.
Yeah.
And sometimes, or lots of times, it's been people like that, and I'll just write to them, "Hey, do you want to be on my podcast?" Yeah, like depending on the work. Go ahead, sorry.
Sorry, yeah. How did you come up with your questions? Because they're very specific curiosities that you seem to pose to the guest as well, which I find quite interesting. Where did those come from?
I ask everyone what is art and what is beauty, because that's what I'm trying to research. And before that, there's a period of 15 minutes to half an hour. I mean, I usually try to keep it 20 minutes because I want the conversation to be about art and beauty, not necessarily about the person. But during that first section of the podcast, I asked them just about their relationship with art, and if they're an oil paint, depending on what they do, I'll ask them how they arrived to what they do, and if they haven't changed, is why they haven't changed the medium, for example, or if if the person is a sculptor and they have just kept sculpting, I'm like, but why? Because I don't know, sculpture is really cool. I mean, this is like a personal thing. Sculpture is obviously very cool, but you need so much room. Everything is always dirty. You can't, like with drawings, you can stack them in a portfolio, for example. You can't do that with sculpture. And, with painting, you can roll them up together, and you have one big roll of your canvases and stuff.
Yeah.
But, that's just an example. Obviously, they all have their pros and cons and stuff. But yeah, like there's that. And also, if they mention their subject matter, I'll ask them about the subject matter and why they choose that. Color palettes are, for example, something that I also find interesting is when a person like talks kind of into more than one medium. Ask them, why do they choose one versus why do they choose the other medium when they want to work on, like it's like, why did you want to work oil in that occasion versus why do you want to work on pencil on that occasion, because I think it's interesting when an artist works in different medium, that obviously it looks different, but it looks different not just because of the medium itself, but because like the language of it's like the calligraphy of the marks is also different, and I just think it's interesting that it's like I don't know, like a translation something, or maybe they're trying to say something different, I don't know, like that kind of, because I mean, don't you do different medium too?
Rarely. I mostly draw. I suppose the most difference I have is between, at the moment I'm using charcoal and chalk, whereas predominantly I use ink. But for painting, I'm more impressionistic than I am with drawing. So I know what you mean. It doesn't correlate as closely as, say, looking at a Van Gogh drawing, where you say this makes sense. This is a consistency that he has with his painted work. And I've noticed that with some people similar to myself, it's not always something you could even kind of connect and say this looks like the work of so and so. But I mean, speaking of which, I've seen your sculpture that you made as you're teaching anatomy, aren't you? And for facial structure, you made these fantastic detailed structures for the lips and the nose and things like that.
Yeah, I actually have it right by me. That class didn't didn't happen because not enough people signed up, but I really enjoyed making these things and, putting together the class. I'm actually thinking of making YouTube videos about that as well. And I used a material called Super Sculpey. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's made here in the United States, and this is the eye I made.
That's fantastic. I love
and it's
that.
like, yeah, it's like really, I mean, maybe it's unnecessarily detailed because it's not like planar, for example, but I don't know, the figure isn't planar. And this one is baked because you can just bake Sculpey in the oven. That's why it's so cool. And you like you can stuff it with aluminum foil.
Okay.
So that it's not solid Sculpey, so you save a bit of Sculpey. So this one's baked, and the lips are not baked yet because I'm not done with them yet. But this is the mouth.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
I mean, and it's
the definition of the form is so crisp, and it does speak to how you draw, because you've got this kind of smooth, kind of buttery finish to the pencils. It's not, there's nothing, you can't really see the strokes to it. You've got this lovely blend of the pencil marks and the rendering which you achieve with a lot of the drawings that I see you doing. So that does kind of translate to your sculpture somewhat. It's a style thing.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. The sculpture is a really good and I mean, that wasn't necessarily the purpose of me making these, but it kind of ended up being what that actually seeing how the surface changes, slopes or does a thing, does a thing, is, and so then not just being able to see it in person, but then having to shape it with your hand, and kind of, and it's like not that dissimilar in that case from drawing as well, because in the drawing one is also trying to sculpt the surface of the paper to try to look like that very slope or the change of plane. But on the paper it's like, one-dimensional, so you have to kind of make the illusion of the slope basically, and then in the sculpture you have to make the physical slope. It's a really, really good, interesting exercise, and it's demanding because, I mean, I'm not I mean, have you taught other people?
Have I taught? Did you say so? Your audio keeps cutting out slightly. It's only little bits of words here and there, but it's something where I was thinking earlier on, is this going to be an issue? But I've taught a little bit, but not properly, not fully yet. But I've taught the odd person, one or two.
Knowing about the audio, so sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
Okay. Well, yeah. So yeah, it's just that when the handful of times that I've taught people, I remind them that you know what a face looks like. Not just because we're pattern recognizing machines. It's like we know what a face looks like when it's just we can recognize a face all the time, and we can recognize all faces. We can recognize anything and everything that qualifies as a face. It's like that's why we can find faces in Toast and whatever, and like in the plugs and wall plugs, but then kind of like demanding of yourself to try to then try to then build that face in your drawing or in your sculpture is exercise, like it's a challenge, and it's good for your brain, probably.
Yeah. I don't know if I've told this story on my channel before. I don't know if I've told you, but I had an art mentor a year before I started university. So it would be about 4 years ago. And when I first met her, the first thing I asked her was, after a portrait drawing session, I showed her the drawing and I said, what's wrong with this drawing? She said, "Nothing, Simon, you've done a very good job." And I said, "What would you change about it?" She said, "Nothing at all, you've done excellent." I was like, okay, if you drew this, what would you change? She goes, "Oh, well, in that case, you've done too much shading on the face and nothing on the neck, which means that tonally the neck is getting more light than the face." Immediately, that made me realize I'm not considering the form and the light distribution with Da Vinci's light distribution theory. I'm not applying that correctly. Even if it's the lightest shading on the neck, it should be considered if I'm going to have some kind of realistic rendering and reflection of the true form that I'm studying. So that was something which is obvious enough, but until you point it out, it can go unnoticed or unappreciated, just like the transitions of kind of, the philtrum or any kind of lines on the face can be shaded too heavily, and the transition isn't soft enough to really describe a very gentle tissue or soft tissue gradient. Things like that I find quite fascinating. And it's a really geeky, detailed oriented, fascination, but that's part of what being a draftsman is, I think, is that interest.
For sure.
Yeah. That's kind of what interests me about teaching, is I think I learn more by teaching other people things which I maybe take for granted or don't reinforce enough. Do you find that to be true?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Yes, I was actually talking to my husband about this because don't ask me how to draw portraits. Know how, it's like every time, whether I want to draw from imagination, from a picture or whatever, it's like, it's like every time it's like, how do I start? A little bit like that, it's like, I also in a way don't remember how I did the previous drawing that I finished or whatever, or really any drawing. Because like right now I'm making a drawing for my parents on my husband's side, and it's their drawings of flowers, which I seldom draw. And one of them is this, it's a lilac.
Oh, beautiful.
And thank you. And it's like that is a ton of tiny little flowers. And when I started, I was like, how the fuck am I gonna draw this?
Yeah.
And then, but there's something about I guess the generalized adage, that they tell us in art school, that you start with the bigger shapes and then you move on to smaller shapes. That's kind of how that's usually probably how I'll do it, that I'll start with, I don't know, whatever's like, a contour, and then kind of cutting into it wherever, just eyeballing stuff, cutting into the contour where it seems right, and then moving things around, and then cutting farther, and then, I don't know, something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's like, it definitely, seeing other teachers teach, and as a teaching assistant and stuff, is definitely helpful. Like, I don't know if you're interested in that, or if your school does that, where they do teaching assistants with alumni. But that's pretty helpful, especially if you have a teacher whose method you liked in particular.
Yeah.
It can be helpful. Yeah. And that actually kind of reminds me a little bit of, I guess, what we talked about before starting. But I kind of feel like there's something of the sort with also like doing exercise and moving, because, or just stuff in general, when you're learning something, you kind of take a generalized view, or, you read the Wikipedia article, which it's generalized knowledge. And then if you're interested, you dig farther and look for more specialized sources or something. So, something like that.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say as well, I can relate to the bigger shape and narrowing it down to smaller. This morning I went to a cattle market because I'm doing I'm going into collaboration with a friend of mine from university, and we're doing it on agriculture. So there's been a lot of getting to know farmers, getting to know farmland, and trying to learn what the machinery is. And part of this project is me going to this cattle market and seeing how people, how the auction goes, how people bid, and what it looks like. And I tried to do a drawing from the top of this kind of bandstand, and I had my phone filming the drawing like that because I couldn't, prop it up. So I was like,
so uncomfortable.
Yeah, it was terrible. But the funny thing is that it's in the mid stage. I'll see if I can show you now. It's in a mid stage at the moment because I didn't have the opportunity to finish. But it's kind of, I tried to capture as many people, and you can see the shape that I had loosely around the outside of the crowd before I started going, right, I've got to get the chalk in there and to describe certain people.
That looks awesome. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. It was fun. It was definitely a challenge, but I haven't been drawing for a while because I've been doing so many interviews, which I love, but so many more than just for the podcast now. I do lots of interviews outside of the podcast, which has been brilliant as well. So I've not been drawing as much. So I started doing life drawing again, and that got me doing big kind of basic shapes to get the different angles of wherever the model rested her arms, and then going in with something a bit more, precise to try and get that. So I love that. But speaking of cattle market, sorry about the transition. I thought this could be a good transition to go into your diet specifically at the moment has caught my attention because you have been posting about this diet and I don't know much about it. And I read that you've been eating, I mean, you put a post up about, well, I'll let you say it actually. You described it for, if you don't mind, if that's all right.
Sure. Yeah. So I think since mid-November of last year, I started experimenting with eating animal-based, meaning just like all meat and animal-derived products. So eggs and dairy, besides all meat. Yeah, that's kind of it. I started like that, and then I removed chicken and pork. And then after that, I finished removing dairy and eggs. And so the reason for which I started is because I have seborrheic dermatitis, which is like dandruff, but on steroids. And, like scalp dandruff, like really jacked up. It's itchy, it gets red, gets irritated, and there's like flare-ups, meaning that it comes and goes. There's like peaks where it's like just crazy and like really irritated and stuff, and then it's kind of like calmer, but then you still have like dandruff, Dandruff is considered a non-inflammatory, benign version of just something. But anyway, so eating either animal-based or carnivore is, anecdotally at least, notorious for putting chronic skin conditions in remission. So, and not just that, it has a reputation for putting lots of other things in remission, like psychological disorders and autoimmune stuff, for example. But yes, so that's why I started. I wanted to try it, and so I've been trying it since. And I just maybe I don't know, maybe a week or a few days ago, I finished a month of only beef. And yeah, I think I'm planning on sticking with that for a bit longer because. So like the long-term project is to get to baseline, meaning that I don't have symptoms of what I'm trying to treat, which is the dermatitis. And so once I get to that point, then I'll start reintroducing stuff and removing it again to see how my skin behaves. And yeah, that's kind of it. And there's been several other positive side effects besides the dermatitis calming down. It's like for the seborrheic dermatitis can also be like on your face. Just I don't know if on the rest of the body, but definitely like on your face, like eyebrows and cheeks here. It's like it gets like red and it's rough. And anyway, so more recently, like maybe last year, I'm not sure, I don't remember exactly when. I was already doing the podcast, so maybe within the last year. I started getting it in my eyebrows, between my eyebrows here and like on the sides of my nose. And like what really got me was that my eyebrows were super itchy and like they were, the skin underneath was itchy and it was red and it's just I got disgusting flakes underneath as well. And I was just like repulsed by it and kind of like mortified by it because. So not just because I thought it was disgusting, but also because the irritation of the inflamed skin was like causing my hair follicles to just like fall out and not grow. So it was like chewing through my hair. Because it's like, for example, in my Barely There widow's peak, like that also happened in the past. But then I was like, all right, I mean, I guess I can get away with having a bigger forehead. I don't know. And for whatever reason, that didn't really bother me that as much. And I was like, I mean, I have lots of room, whatever. But then when it got to my eyebrows and I'm starting to lose my eyebrows, I was like, all right, that's enough. To stop. We need to calm down. I don't know how that works, but if we were in person, you would be able to see it, but if you ask me which hairs did I lose in my widow's peak, I wouldn't be able to tell you anymore because this was years ago, like more than a decade ago. But I remember that it's been gradually getting rounder, it used to be a little bit pointier. But so anyway, so I no longer have the eyebrow and between my eyebrows and rough skin here on the sides of my nose, which was just like, that's like the other thing. It was like rough, like a sandpaper type, not that rough, but kind of like that. And that stopped soon after removing pork and chicken, which is interesting. Yeah. I don't know how that works. And it seems like nobody has really tried to explain it like in a scientist sort of way, because for whatever reason, it's not taken very seriously. Not yet anyway. Hopefully some people will soon, at some point. But yeah, the thing is that my skin is nice and calm. Like I still have dandruff on my head. And what I have now, and it's like, no, I wouldn't love to show you pictures. I have not taken any pictures of that because I don't want anyone to see it. I want to see it, So I don't have like photographic evidence or anything. But so like what I have now are like these really hard scabs, not scabs, scab-like dandruff, meaning that it's hard. And it's not, it's not greasy like dandruff is sometimes. It's not exactly flaky necessarily. I don't know. It's not normal dandruff. It's pretty interesting, to be honest. And really what matters to me is that it's different than what it was before, because if it's changing, then that means something is happening. So yeah, like I'm trying to be patient in terms of, just whatever, because it's like I've been dealing with that for decades, right? My whole life, basically, because even before I had the dermatitis, I had dandruff. So it's like there's like this lifelong situation happening, So if I obviously have to be patient to see what happens. And there's been other stuff I didn't start eating this way for those things, but they've been happening. And it's like my energy level during the day is like super stable. It's like super stable, like especially particularly since doing only beef. It's super stable. Like I don't get tired or anything, and I feel energetic and kind of very willing to do stuff. More than before. It's very easy to get out of bed, and then like consistently at night, I get tired at around the same time, go to sleep, and sleep really pretty well. My sleep has slowly been getting better too, and it's awesome.
That's fantastic.
I feel very well. Yeah.
Have you thought about or started journaling some of this? Because I thought that your illustrative style could really benefit any science that does develop about this diet. Have you ever considered that, or is that something you've written anything about?
I have been keeping a journal type thing. Yes. It didn't even occur to me to draw about it, actually. But I entry on the subject, and that is going to be an experience report and a video experience report for the YouTube.
Can I just ask, sorry, did you say a Wikipedia, the audio cut out again, did you say a Wikipedia entry? I don't know why that's...
No, blog.
The blog entry.
Yeah. So I have a blog that I don't write on that often, but it's called, what's it called? I don't even look at that. I don't even remember what it's called right now. Art Talk and Other Stuff, something like that. And yes, but I'm planning on making an entry there to kind of supplement the video, because it's long.
Mm.
And I don't want the video to be that long as
Yeah.
the entry. Because ideally I'd like people to watch anyways, whatever. The thing is that I'm gonna have like the blog entry supplement or complement the video to like have extra stuff there to reference.
Mm.
Yes. Yeah.
The only other thing I was thinking as well is I was diagnosed with celiac disease in 2010, and why you'll see me with indigestion quite often is that there's an after effect of that. I had a hiatus hernia in my lower esophagus, and it causes a lot of indigestion quite often. And so I know what it's like to cut things out of your diet and to try to introduce things to find what is actually affecting me now, because it's not always just wheat and gluten and you're sorted. It's a lot of things can just play havoc with your digestive system. So recently I've discovered that I have to cut out all of the drinks except for water, which I drink now, because anything else really upsets my stomach. And I quit coffee when I quit smoking it last year or the year before, I can't even remember. And I used to love both smoking and coffee, so it was good for me to quit those, because that does throw off a lot of how you stay awake and how you sleep and things. So that was a good thing to quit. But then and bread and pasta, that's all fine, as much as I'm part Italian, so cutting out pasta was brutal, and having wheat and gluten-free pasta is not the same. I don't care what anyone says. But at the same time, it's kind of just finding out what works and what doesn't is what drives you to keep going, really, and to try and think, is there improvement if I cut this out? And it was just fruit juice for me recently, which I had to cut out, which was really causing me a lot of pain. No, I still have quite a significant amount of discomfort, but it's something which you can at least try to jot down and experiment with a little bit. And I suppose what I was thinking as well is, have you ever thought, when this started for over a decade ago, as you said, do you think that was an allergic reaction, or do you think that was a stress related? I mean, where do you think the origins of this would lie?
I'm really not sure. I remember having dandruff when it was like before I was a teenager. And it's kind of disgusting, I remember, but I just remember like kind of scratching my scalp, and it was like greasy type dandruff. But then after that, I remember just having gone through acne treatment, this really jacked up acne treatment. I think the US or UK version is Accutane, but in Panama it was Roaccutane. It's like this. It takes like a version of vitamin A, and it does something to like the mucus, whatever. The thing is that my hypothesis is that once I was done with that, which was I don't know how many years I was on that. I was a lot of years on that stuff. I think after that is when I developed the dermatitis, but I don't know, because I don't quite remember. But I think that's about the order of stuff, and it kind of makes sense, because if you're like with the mucous membranes of the body, it's like there's no way you're getting off without consequences, and that medicine, that pharmacological substance is nothing to joke with, because it has like a gigantic insert with a ridiculous amount of side effects. And it's like, it is so powerful that when you go on it, your dermatologist has to put you, if you're a woman, has to put you on control, because you cannot be pregnant. It's like you cannot risk getting pregnant while on that, because of whatever it's going to do to the fetus. It's like, yeah. And I mean, not that it's the case only with Accutane. It's like, that is basically the risk with any and all medication. But yeah, that was a pretty, and I mean, also, I guess your question, that was many years ago, more than 10 years ago, I'm pretty sure. So it's like, I don't know whether this or that is the consequence of having taken that, because I don't know, like, I have no way of knowing whether it made any kind of permanent change in my physiology. I don't know, but I don't know. I have
Yeah.
no idea.
Well,
I mean, that's like, yeah.
sorry, no. So I was just going to
No,
ask
no,
as
go ahead.
well. The because you've been so public about sharing things like this, which I love. I really appreciate people who can share anything which they're trying to do as a health or something which is not just beauty, because people are always into sharing beauty tips and things and aesthetic tips as opposed to health and kind of well-being tips, which I think are things which are really valuable for everyone to know. What has the reaction been? Because people can be very passionate about, diets in their own lens. What's what's that reaction been like?
Say that thankfully so far there hasn't been any like militant vegan giving me shit about it or about anything. I've just had some curiosity from a handful of people that I know in person, no less.
Oh, really?
So
Okay.
it hasn't been too bad or anything. I mean, it hasn't been bad at all. Because I'm aware that I'm like taking a risk by talking about that, but at the same time, I feel like some balance is necessary just because it feels like the bias towards either varied diet or just straight up plant-based vegan diet is so strong that it's like, why can't, and it's, I don't know, I just feel like, and not that there aren't other people talking about it. There's lots of people with way more way bigger audience than I'm ever going to have talking about it, just openly talking about it. And that's obviously good, but and welcome, and I'm very grateful for the fact that at least both have a presence, and things in between is because there's obviously ketogenic, Paleolithic, and breatharians, because that exists. I don't know if you know, but that is a real
I don't know what that is. What's breatharian?
Breatharians are people who claim that you just need air.
Wow,
That's right. Yes. Yeah, and it's like what did I do? I read the Wikipedia article. I found a website. My husband and we saw a video about like the original guy or something, and then I found a YouTube channel, a website, and a YouTube channel about a guy that claims to be a breatharian. He just looks terrible. And I don't know. I think I don't know. I think it's obvious that he has some kind of a problem because he's not eating enough.
Yeah.
Anyway, whatever. It's amusing.
I'd have to figure out how to put like chicken wings into gas form for me to survive on breath.
Yes. Yes. That's a form of gourmet cuisine where like they will like infuse air with some kind of yeah.
Yeah.
But it's gourmet. It's like really fancy. It's really expensive. It's ridiculous.
I'd never heard of breatharians. That's really interesting. But yeah, no, I'm glad to hear that you've not had a bad response, because I thought it's really brave to put out something so personal and something so divisive, not purposely, but just because of the nature of people's, I suppose, triggers in those areas. When it comes to food, you hear a lot of people openly object to other people's diets. And but I love your kind of movement training and strength and conditioning training that you share as well. Now, since the pandemic, I used to be a skinny guy, and since the pandemic, I've put a lot of weight on. So I'm watching your videos thinking there will come a day where I'll commit to doing this. But right now I'm compromising all of that, for something else. But is that something you've always done, or is it something that you started doing at some point recently?
Yeah, I have done it to some degree. I guess for, I don't know, since graduating school, maybe? Not the academy, just like high school. I mean, in high school we had physical education, so I guess I'm not a big athlete or anything. It's like I'm not like a gymnast doing flips and stuff. It's like I'm not like bouncy, and like I'm not a basketball player or anything. I'm not an athlete in that way. But I do like to move, and I do like to experiment with movement, although like the intention has changed throughout the years. It started, similarly to when we were talking about art, where you start with bigger shapes and stuff. I mean, at the same time, it isn't just about starting with bigger shapes, but just starting with something. So the intention was different at first because I did want to be like skinny and stuff. but I would just go to a gym that I had within walking distance to the house, and I had to pay like $2 a day or something like that. And I would go there and I would do something, with weights and stuff. Well, it's just like, I don't know. I mean, just like regular cable machines, like those machines.
Yeah.
And so like it's just changed throughout the years. Then afterwards I would work out at home with DVDs of stuff that I found interesting, like ballet or Pilates, and go for a walk around my house. And then after graduating from graduate school, then it has I don't know, like completely, I guess that's when there's been like the most change, because I gained a little bit of weight in school, but I didn't want to think about looking thin or being thin necessarily like it was before. I wanted to feel strong. So like feel strong meaning not necessarily be strong where I can like demonstrate to something, but just feel like feel agile and mobile, and like I don't have to fear that I'm going to hurt my back or something if I like bend down to the floor to pick something up. So that's kind of what I mean. So I mean that intention is still there. And so, like the thing about health and beauty, like with what you were saying, is that beauty is the consequence of health. Meaning that healthy, it's like if you have the same person when they are healthy versus when they are unhealthy, they are obviously more attractive when they're healthy. So it's like beauty is a consequence of health. And that is why, some people confuse them, or, that's why that's just what we do, that we think they're the same thing, or rather we turn them around and think that beautiful is healthy when it's like healthy is beautiful, it's like, anyway, the thing is that, so to the intention of wanting to feel strong and agile and mobile or just capable, I've slowly been adding the intention of longevity and wanting to maintain the capable, able body that can move just independently in the long term. So like I want to get to however long I will. I mean, I want to live a long time, but then I also want to be able to just keep walking by myself independently without needing a walker or a cane or something. For example, I want to be able to get on the floor and then get back up, bend down and not crack my back or something. So with the development of just like whatever it is that I learn throughout the years, and I mean learning more stuff via Instagram, looking at stuff on Instagram or just reading about things or watching videos. So I have kind of like become more experimental when I do when I have my workout time. And actually for like the last, I don't know, 2 weeks, not even that long, I haven't deliberately planned a workout because that's what I was doing before. All right, tomorrow I kind of feel like I want to use weight, but I want to do squats, like back squats or something. But then I don't plan anything. I haven't been planning anything until I get on the mat, and I'm just like, all right, I just want to like kind of like stretch something back here, and I kind of feel like doing this and something like that, and then I want to lift the weight like this, and I don't know, it's a gesturing a lot. But it's exploratory and curious, and with the intention of those other things of maintaining agility and mobility. Like I've been practicing splits and back bridges, and it feels really good.
It looks just feels great because you've got it, because it's kind of regulated. That's why I think, even though, like you said, it's not to be an athlete or anything like that, but you've got your mats there, like a yoga mat type of thing, and then your weights, and you're doing this specific movement exercise repeatedly. And it's just, I think just that looks like a good practice to commit to. The fact that you're responding to how you feel at the time is even better, because it's literally waiting to feel what you want to work out when you get to the mat is not something I expected. Again, it's my, I don't know what it is, where I've got a inkling to say, are you journaling this? Because I'd love to see this is the movements that I'm doing. And again, I would gladly purchase a book of your journaling, of going, this is my movement exercise journal I'm going to publish, as far as these are the exercises that I've done and what happened or whatever. It's really interesting stuff to me. I think it's great.
Yeah, I guess, in a way I do journal them, because not exactly, but I do. I guess it just occurred to me that maybe putting them up on the stories is kind of, but
Yeah.
I do write about it in where I keep note of other just how I feel in general, because I'm trying to keep track of the thing with eating meat and stuff, just to make sure that, or just to keep track of stuff. So I do write about it there, but yeah, but I'm not sure about necessarily about illustrating it via images, because that probably would be cool if I had the imagination to do that. And I have thought about before about how there's definitely a connection between moving, physically actually moving, and drawing the figure, but I don't know where the connection is. I felt that most when I was modeling for art classes, because sitting in the pose, the body starts to settle in the pose, and it's not exactly the same as when you initially took. If you've seen models probably doing that, it's not that, like, the pose in which you end up is not the same as the one in which you started. So that kind of, I'm not sure what the connection is, but I feel like it's there somewhere. And like the things that start to hurt, the things that fall asleep, the things that burn, while in the pose, and then, I'm not sure. Either way, when one is trying to illustrate the figure, it's like when you were drawing the camel thing, those people were probably not standing still.
No,
so it's like they weren't.
No.
Yeah, so it's like movement is a default of just life in general. And it's like, even as we're both just sitting here chit-chatting, it's like the within, it's in constant movement, because, and not just what you would think, like, oh, breathing and circulation. There's a bunch of other, there's like the nervous system, there's the adipose tissue, there's lymphatic system, there's your digestion, there's hair growing, there's all kinds of stuff happening. So that movement is a default of life. And so it, in a way, is that what we're trying to talk about when we're drawing, maybe? So it's like, I'm not sure what the connection is there, but I'm pretty sure there is one.
Yeah. I suppose when I was drawing the farmers, I think I kept noticing things like where people's legs would settle if they're resting on the fence. One of their legs would be kind of cocked and the other one would be straight. And things like that, I think, are really, you wouldn't consciously do it. I remember photographing a chorus line of girls once before they went on stage. And I said, if you'll just stand for a pose, and they did. And then I said to them, I was like, look at how each of you have your feet in a specific different way. And there's no way you would have said, this is my pose with my feet. It's just naturally an extension of who you are and your confidence in that moment. And I think those subconscious things that occur are kind of some of the most precious observations I think we can make, because everything else seems to be almost performative, because we're trying to present a certain, front for who we are, and presentation, which is going to serve, the purpose, adequately. So I think that everything that can really show who the person is, or them relaxed in some moment, is just like a real precious second, really. And I think that's, now my drawing is very scribbly, but I'm trying to get sticks that angle in certain ways just to say it was kind of like that. And I'll try to finish it from a reference this evening or tomorrow. Sorry, I always get this when I talk for quite a while. I kind of can't breathe all of a sudden because I have weird digestion. So yeah, I know what you mean as far as with drawing. It seems to be, I don't exactly know what I'm trying to communicate, but I know it's something within that moment in time that we're trying to respond to in some way, which is it's lovely. I think that's a really nice thing to not even be quite aware of, but to strive for constantly. Where is your career at the moment? What is it that you're kind of pushing for or looking forward to, or what's kind of happening in your life, in your art career?
I'm working on the podcast and have guests scheduled up to like July now, like the mid-July, I think.
Mm.
So that's cool. And well, I'm working on that drawing for my in-laws. It's 2 drawings, but the lilac one is a more difficult one. So because the other one is just a daffodil, so it's just one flower instead of a ton of little flowers.
Mm.
And otherwise, I'm trying to think. I'm prioritizing that for now, and I'm trying to think of a subject matter which I would like to elaborate about in more than one drawing.
Mm.
Because I haven't. Only time I've ever done that was when I was at the academy, because I tend to meander and drift. Not that that's a bad thing, but it's not conducive to, I don't know, like the I don't know, like the trust of the viewer in a way. Um, just because it's inconsistent. So I'm just thinking about that. I've been in a zine or two. I
Oh,
think they're
have you?
zines.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a couple of online things, but I can't say that I'm like super like skyrocketing career right now. I mean, it's like
You're not working on an exhibition at the moment, because I think your work
I'm
would be,
not.
no, because I can
Yeah.
imagine your work exhibited someday, and I'd look forward to seeing that. I mean, I'd love to be able to see it in person, but I could imagine your work framed, because it's such nice rendering that it's something which is very specific to you as far as style as well. I'm thinking specifically of now I can't remember what the singer's name was with the top hat and that challenge that you put
Stevie
online.
Nicks, yeah.
That's it, Stevie Nicks. And when I finished the drawing, I thought, this is not the best drawing that I've done, but I'm happy with the top hat. So I'll send it to you just so you can show that I've, engaged with that challenge and I really enjoyed it. And then when I saw yours, I was like, that's lovely. That's really gone beyond just kind of like, oh, I'm going to do a realistic copy of the photograph. It's more stylized and it's so beautifully rendered that, yeah, I think that an exhibit of your work would be a real treat. So hopefully in the future, I mean, it's not pressure on you, obviously, because I don't mean like, hopefully you'll do that. And if not, then there's something's wrong. I just mean for
Yeah.
me and for other people, I could see it happening. It'd be lovely to see.
Yeah, I haven't. Yeah, I haven't had the work up in a while, and I did start submitting work to different things, and so like that's how I got on the zine, and there's been like a couple of online things, but I haven't submitting really that much to so very many art exhibits. But I mean, I have still. But I mean, you probably know that if like you want to get into a show, whether it's a group show or whatever it is, you have to submit to a lot of open calls, which is better.
Yeah.
But I haven't been submitting to enough to get to the point where like 1 or 2 will take my work in, because I want to do different things. So like I want to draw, and I want to draw more, and I want to read, and I want to learn different subjects. And I started learning Blender.
Oh, wow.
You know that, yeah. I mean, I just see it's it's like a similar problem to what I mentioned just now about the meandering with subject matter. It's like, oh, all right, it's like this and then this, and then it's like one of the maybe the pitfalls of being maybe not an artist but high in trait openness. If you've heard Jordan Peterson talk about this, which is characteristic of artists, and he indeed says that that's why it's difficult to, he says, catalyze or personality, but it's just, I guess what that means is that it's just difficult to focus on one thing. And so like what ends up happening is that you end up not gripping anything in particular hard enough to focus on it for long enough. So I guess that's what I'm trying to do, to like focus more on fewer things so that they can actually be developed into something of fruition. And I guess that's similar with finding subject matter that I'd like to talk about for longer with drawings. Instead of like, oh yeah, Stevie Nicks, and sometimes Mila Jovovich, or this other time, this ballerina,
Yeah.
with their amazing shoulder girdles.
Yeah.
Yes. So I guess, I mean, I try not to worry about it, and try not to stress and like I'm like stagnating or not getting more followers or something. I'm trying not to worry.
No.
But the Instagram account not getting more followers.
Yeah.
Because that's no good.
No, it's not. That's not a healthy thing. Yeah, so good for you. That's not something to impose upon yourself. I've got a weird question for you, and you don't have to answer this if it's too personal or if it's a bit too left-wing for you. I'm just not left-wing politically. I mean, just out of left-wing, out of left field. That's the expression.
Yeah.
You have a kind of different look that you adopt online, where you have like an outfit that you'll make and a specific look that you'll do. Is this because it almost seems like a different persona that you put on? Is that something which you can talk about? Is that a specific thing, or is that literally, yeah?
Sure. No, it's cool. Well, all right, let me tell you, Simon.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that's a cool question. After having done the podcast a few times, I was like, wait, it's like a fourth at least of the reason is so that I can put a super fun outfit together and paint myself. Because I love makeup. I don't wear it really that much because it's like I do the podcast once a week, and so I wear the makeup that day most times, not even every time.
Yeah.
And then that is the extent of my relationship with makeup. But I think makeup is really cool, except that I understand the no makeup look. I don't get it in the sense that if you're going to put all that shit on your face, then you have to make it count.
Yeah.
So it's like, because I don't want my skin necessarily to look like my skin. I mean, the point of putting foundation on is to even out the tone of skin, because that skin is naturally, it's not one color, right? You know this because we know that the artists.
Yeah.
And so like you want to kind of even it out so that when you put a color or another color, it won't clash with the different colors that are beneath the skin or on the surface of the skin. So that's why you put foundation on, to even out your skin tone. And then you have to like add color back so that then it looks more like a living person, with the blush, and some people do bronzer.
Like priming the canvas, isn't it? You've got to prime the canvas. And
exactly. Yes. Yeah. The second thing you put on actually is primer. In many occasions. That's what it's called. Yes.
Yeah.
And so I just, when I go to do this stuff, then I mean that's kind of basically my style. I don't always, like, if I go out, I don't always put all that on, but I like the whole gothy kind of, the BDSM gear type stuff, gothy type lady. So it's, I mean, sometimes I do when I go out, but not all the time, because who has time to put that on all the time? But the things that, it's just really fun for me. So I guess tangentially, I've been like kind of exploring a little bit the like femininity, I guess, because I'm not entirely sure why I didn't as much when I was younger. It's like I'm doing a couple of things. Like I've been letting my nails grow, which I haven't also in decades. Like they're long. You can you see it or no?
I can see it. Yeah, I can see the puff.
Yeah, I mean they're a little bit long. And the makeup and just like enjoying it, watching tutorials. And the next one that I want to explore is heels, because I love heels.
Yeah.
They're so uncomfortable. But anyway, the thing is that yes, it's it's also like mood. Do you know Mila Jovovich?
Yeah.
Okay. So Mila Jovovich is awesome, obviously. And she I always liked in her younger modeling days how she was like panhellenic without changing very much. Or no, not that's not right. It's like, she is the constant throughout different fits and moods and setups and photographs and something like that. But I kind of wanted, I like that idea of just going with the mood of like, today I feel like an international something like that, or like today I feel like a fighting game character.
Yeah.
Something like that. I really enjoy indulging in that. And so for the podcast, I guess I indulge in gothy podcast host, I guess.
Well, there's a bit of a persona attached to it as well, because you've got a very
Sure.
kind of, you're very bubbly and sincere as an interviewee. As an interviewer, you're kind of very stoic and you're very kind of serious with the way that you approach is that a conscious thing, or is that something which just naturally descends upon you?
I can't say it's conscious. I mean, because I'm trying to listen and trying to see if I understand what the person is telling me,
Mhm.
and just paying attention. And well, this is a little bit blown out, so I guess you might not see if I'm like super frowny and stuff. But then the other camera is better, so I look more frowny. But yeah, there's my serious, like a serious facial expression, or like a concentrated facial expression. So it's more about the person that I'm talking to, more than about me in that case. So that probably has something to do with how my demeanor
I
looks.
see.
Perhaps, I think.
Yeah. I quite
Maybe.
like I have to say, I love the frowny, just because I don't know about you, but as someone who draws faces, I do love a
Oh yeah, frowns are awesome.
glabella.
No, you're of course right. Frowns are awesome.
You can see
They're
that
great.
little glabella there. It's fantastic, because it's like a little bump in between the two lines. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, and not just in frowns in general, because it isn't just here. There's also like musculature and skin folding that not skin
Absolutely.
folding, but crunching that kind of happens here
Yeah.
above the eyebrow. Like that is, I love that. It looks, and like then in conjunction with the lower eye socket here, it's like, oh my God, and like the outer corner of the eye, it's like all of that stuff together. It's like a really, it's like, that's why portraits are cool.
Yeah. It's magic.
Yeah.
Is it you who
Yeah,
told me that
really.
muscles pull in the opposite direction than the shape bulges? Is it you who told me that, or someone else?
Um, I'm not sure if I told you specifically, but that is generally the case, yes.
Yeah.
I don't actually know if that applies here, because if the skin folds like this, then it would mean that the muscle fiber would be this way, which I don't know if that is the case. But there's so much happening under the face that you don't know. There's no
Yeah.
way of knowing.
Yeah.
It's simpler in the rest of the body, where there's not so much stuff layered. And there is stuff layered, but not nearly as much as really on. I'm looking at one of my posters. Not nearly as much as on the face. It's like the facial musculature is insane. It's like these outer corners of the mouth here, that we have the nodes there. It's
Yeah.
like 9 muscles attached here. Okay, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And they're coming from everywhere. It's
Yeah.
like, if you know platysma, the one that it's like very thin, that's here. It's like it has like one of the attachments is into the node. It's crazy.
Really?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. That's so
It's just
technical.
crazy.
I knew that it was in
Yeah.
layers, because it looks almost like plates sat on top of each other, like plates of muscles. But I know from hearing anatomists talk that muscles can't be counted for the threads, because they said it just breaks apart. They said it's kind of made of it's like a stringy not stringy, sorry, it's not stringy. So it's kind of, it all just disappears as you try to disassemble it. As an anatomist, they said that anatomy students tried to pick apart muscles, but it just completely breaks apart, and it's not solid threads that you can count to make them. So I know that it's all, it's not specific fiber, but it's all kind of makes this solid clump. So yeah, it's fascinating stuff. I saw a video the other day where someone's bicep had collapsed, which looks incredibly painful, but it's just bizarre to think of how that happens from all this kind of strength of build up. And this guy is, very built as well, which I think that's the only reason why it happens, is someone who pushes too hard or something. And it was like his bicep was there, but the other half it's like it'd been squeezed with a vice or something. It's very strange.
It's crazy.
Very strange
It's crazy
stuff. Okay, well, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I really love having you on as a guest, and I appreciate your time and your insights. It's always great to hear from you. Is there anything that you want to promote, any social media or any events coming up that you want to direct people to?
Yes. So first up is it's just first name, last name, Gabriela Handal, Instagram. My website is also just first name, last name, GabrielaHandal.com. And there you can buy my drawings, original drawings directly. We also have an Insta where you can purchase my drawings just on demand. And I have, of course, my YouTube channel where you can watch a conversation about art. I only have it there for now. I am looking to put it up like in Apple Podcasts or something like that. At some point, I'm researching. That's one of many things I'm researching. Yes, I think that's it.
About your tip jar, is that worth directing people to you?
Oh yeah, the tip jar. Yeah, that's Kofi or Kofi. I don't know how you pronounce that.
Yeah.
But yes, I have a tip jar. If your listeners would like to, and viewers would like to support my work and my podcast, that'd be great. Yes, those are all good ways to support.
Absolutely. Well, I will obviously put all of the links in the description, and I really do encourage all the viewers to support Gabriela because her work is fantastic. Such a wonderful person, as you can tell, like an incredible person to talk to. Again, I would love to have you on again in the future because I can always have a great conversation with you, and I love talking about technical drawing and all of that stuff. There's a ton of questions I didn't ask you, but I'll save that for the next time. Thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Simon.
Okay, so that is the episode done. Now, wasn't she an amazing guest? Now, I know that we didn't always talk about art. We kind of talked a lot about diets and other aspects of life and, like the kind of movement exercise stuff, but I found that really interesting. And she's someone who I can talk to for a long periods of time, whether it's about draftsmanship or about other interesting aspects of her personality. And I just find her fascinating. I think she's a really nice person, incredibly talented artist. I really was being absolutely sincere. I think you could tell when I said that I want to see her work in an exhibition. I hope that happens in the future. I hope that I can be in New York to see it. She's an amazing artist. Go and support her in the links in the description below. She really deserves it. She's a fantastic person as well. And I'd really like to see her on the channel again. In fact, I've kind of arranged with her to be on the channel in the near future, and we're going to figure that out soon. So, if you did enjoy the episode, I'd really appreciate it if you could leave a like. Now, if you're not signed in, I understand I'm not always signed into YouTube, but if you are signed in, then leave a like. It costs you nothing. Subscribing to the channel, again, costs nothing, and it means probably nothing to your channel. It won't make a big difference in your life, but it makes a huge difference to me. And if you do subscribe, if you do like, or if you don't do either of those things, another great thing to do, really important thing, is to share this channel with friends and family, anyone who's interested in art or who you think might be entertained by it. That would be amazing. I really want the channel to grow. With your help, it will grow, and hopefully in the future I will have a much larger audience so that I can do more ambitious things, because I would like this channel to be part of my actual job, because I'm doing it almost full time. Anyway, aside from that, I really do appreciate you watching. I'll see you in the next episode.